Welcome to this week's edition of The Brian Kelly Show, presented by TireRack.com. I'm your host, Tony Simeone, and joined as always by Dick Corbett, head coach for Notre Dame Football, Brian Kelly. Coach, let's start right at the top. First drive of the game. I can't imagine it going much better. Jack Cohn looked great in his first drive, but what did you like out of the offense on that opening drive?
Starting fast. That was really the mantra with this football team. Go on the road. 4 quarters of football for Notre Dame: start fast, attention to detail, effort and enthusiasm, and finish strong. I think we got 2 of the 4 right. We'd like to fill it in a little bit better, but starting fast and, fourth down call that was very decisive. We knew we were going to go for it, and so we were able to get the play call in right away, which hurt them a little bit. They didn't have the coverage lined up, and go to the guy that makes plays for you. We get it to Mike Mayer. We scored the touchdown right away.
First couple defensive drives looked really sound on the defensive end. Of course, Marcus Freeman, the new defensive coordinator. What did you like from the defense those first 2 series?
Yeah, we caused some havoc. You know, there were tackles for loss. There was the kind of defense that we expect. I think our players went in there with the right mindset. Over a period of time, we went back to an old mindset of how we used to play defense. And we played good defense, don't get me wrong, under Clark Lee, but it's a different mindset in the way we want to play with havoc in mind. And so, there were good things. We needed to actually capitalize on offense in that first quarter. We had 3 situations in third down that we didn't convert, and 1 in fourth down, where I think we could have extended ourselves offensively and maybe quieted that group down and maybe added some doubt to Florida State. And not capitalizing there, Tony, probably put us in a position where we had to fight a little harder.
Yeah, Florida State, they did a good job of getting back in that game. A couple big plays there in the early part of the game, make it 14-7. I thought a really important drive was the drive after that second touchdown. Drove down Jonathan Dorr, who had the game-winning field goal, knocked in a really key 48-yarder for you guys. What did that do for his confidence and your confidence as a team?
Yeah, I think we needed to get a score there. I think that was an important drive, you're right. And I think the field goal in itself, kind of put us back in a position where, all right, we're probably going to score points here all night in some fashion. And Jonathan, again, he's always had that consistency. He'll miss one here or there, but he's not a guy that you feel like is all over the place. And when he's locked in, he's a pretty darn good kicker.
There's plenty of talk about Kyle Hamilton, one of the best safeties in the entire country. Next defensive series, he comes up, makes a big interception right around midfield to get you guys the ball back and another chance to set up a scoring drive.
Yeah, so, that's where our defense really came in big, and we get a couple of possessions from our defense, where they take the football away, and we capitalize, and that was the run that we really had that was important for us, from an offensive perspective. And I think just a little bit of both, right? We were able to play really good defense, and then we got the ball to our playmakers, and that's where Jack Cohn really shined. Distributing the football. Braden Lenzy makes a big play there. Earlier he gets it to Mayer. So that distribution, Kyron Williams out of the backfield. There's a lot of weapons that you have to really pay attention to, and I think Jack did a great job of getting the ball out.
I want to ask you about one of those weapons, because Joe Wilkins made the next big touchdown catch, a big jump ball, 23-yarder. We've mentioned Mayer, Williams, the guys you expect to see on offense, but to be able to push the ball on a third down to Joe Wilkins to make that catch, to give you guys the 17-14 lead, what did that do for you guys?
Oh, I think it's big. And look, we said from day one when we were talking about this football team, the guys that had to step up for us offensively in terms of the receivers were the Joe Wilkinses and the Braden Lenzys and the Kevin Austins, and they all made plays in this game. So that's a trend that if it continues, and I believe it will, we're going to be a pretty good offense and could be a really, really good offense because you then add the other pieces that we know have been there for us.
Let me ask you about halftime. I'm always curious, in that environment, you have a 17-14 lead. When you're in the locker room, what's the message like? What's the vibe? How do you set your team up to go on to have the third quarter that you had?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, 17-14 at the half. We've got a little bit of momentum going into halftime. And, I quite frankly thought that from a defensive standpoint, we needed to pick it up a little bit. I thought we were a little distracted at halftime, and it almost proved to be the case. I think we were confident, but a little bit distracted at halftime. Look, we're learning a new way to play on defense, and I don't know that we're there yet. We're going to get there. Marcus Freeman is going to get this group there. we're not quite there. I was a little concerned about what was going to happen. I felt good about the focus of our offense and where they were, and that proved to be the case. So we got a little work to do there, but they're going to get there as a unit.
Yeah, you mentioned defense gives up the big play, so Florida State takes the lead 2017, but your offense responded like you said. And Kevin Austin's name we've heard a lot about in the offseason. 3rd and 1 at the 37 of Florida State, and Jack Cohn takes a shot to him. What'd you see on that play?
Yeah, obviously his physical ability, he's long and he's physical, and he's a mismatch for most defensive backs. I mean, you can't match him up one-on-one without some safety help. He's going to win in those matchups. So I thought Jack did a really good job of looking the safety off. They were in a 2-deep zone. He got the safety to commit inside. And when you have a guy like Mike Mayer running down the middle of the field, they're going to cover him, and it leaves that perimeter player one-on-one. And I think Florida State, to understand what they were trying to do is that they didn't expect big plays out of these wide receivers on the outside. So if they were going to take something away, they were going to take Mike Mayer away.
Gave you guys the 24-20 lead. We talked about Kyle Hamilton earlier. His second interception, we're going to get a chance to look at a little bit later in our Irish Intel segment. Talk me through the second pick, because he came from all the way on the other side of the field to make that play.
There's nothing that I can add to it. It's just one of those athletic plays that is there any other safety that can make a play like that? I mean, his physical ability, he's making up for what was a glaring mistake in coverage as well. One of our defensive backs came out of coverage in a scrambling situation. The quarterback was scrambling and he came out of coverage, and he comes out of nowhere and really covers up a glaring mistake and makes an incredible play.
Offense kept it going too. Big screen pass on 3rd and 17 to Kyron Williams. Then you get down there on 3rd and goal. He pounds it in. What'd you like on that drive that gave you guys your first 2-score lead of the game?
A well-executed screen. I mean, it's hard to get those linemen out sometimes, and to see those big guys out there in a first game, well-executed screen. The timing was excellent. Jack showed really good patience in there, and then to make the blocks downfield. Sometimes hard to execute in camp screens because you're trying to keep people up and you don't want to cut, and I thought they did a really nice job executing it.
People are going to see the 38 points and think maybe the defense didn't have their best game. I know you said there's stuff to clean up, but they got another takeaway on the next series. So back-to-back series, again, Hamilton's in on the play. Clarence Lewis gets the pick. What'd you see on that play to get it on 4th down?
Yeah, I thought Clarence did a nice job. We were in a double zone. He really sinks on coverage. They're trying to run the smash corner, what they had run earlier before. It does a nice job of laying off on the underneath route, which was insignificant. If they throw that, we're going to come up and tackle it. He sinks, does a great job, covers the route. We get a nice pick there, and it puts us in really good field position.
Great field position. Chris Tyree pounds it in. So it's 38-20. At this point, up 18, late 3rd. What's going through your head as the head coach trying to put this thing away on the road and not let it get back to a tie game as it eventually did?
Score one more time on offense. I felt like one more score, and then this game is probably over, and we didn't get that score. We had a number of opportunities to put the thing away, and those are the things you look back critically later and go, all right, we need to get this thing and put it away offensively, regardless of what our defense did at that time. So I think that's one thing. And then certainly the second thing defensively is, the big plays, not giving up the big plays. And, we know what we need to work on. And it's not, a lack of talent or want to. So this is something that we can take care of, internally and get it done.
I want to ask you about the one wrinkle there at the end when the quarterback change happened. Yeah. Travis's helmet comes off, Mackenzie Milton comes in. I know you guys prepared for both, but when the change comes that late in the game, in a close game, how tough is that for your defense to adjust?
Well, there were some personnel issues that we ran into more than the quarterback. They went to 4 wide receivers, and they had never gone to a 4 wide receiver set before. So that, if we were going to play man-to-man coverage, we were putting one of our safeties in a man situation on a slot. So some of those things needed to be addressed and have been. So it was much more about their formational changes when they went to Milton and taking the tight end off off the field, which presented to us some difficult matchups.
So they were able to get 18 unanswered, tied at 38. You guys head to overtime. You go out and win the toss. I want to ask just real quick, strategy-wise. You win the toss. Why do you pick defense first?
Well, certainly you want to know what you need. And as it played out, when they missed their field goal, we were able to call plays on offense that were safe and really set it up for the field goal. If they score, then obviously we're going to call different plays. We're not going to play conservative in that situation. We need to get the ball into the end zone. So by going on defense first, you get a chance to obviously find out what you need and call plays accordingly.
Knowing what you needed, it just seemed like you guys were so confident Jonathan Dorr could take you home from 41 yards. What gives you that confidence that he can win a game like that in that environment?
He's been really good. I go to the Clemson game where he made the kicks in the Clemson game in overtime, and he just has been really good in those big moments. He locks things out, does a really good job when he's called on in those big moments. Any of his misses have normally been out of his range, or games that are add-on points. But when he's been called upon in those big moments, he has the ability to really lock in and deliver.
Last thing I'll ask you as we break down this game is obviously plenty to work on this week as you get set for Toledo, but as you look back on the contest, what's maybe the biggest positive you take away from a team that went down and got that overtime victory?
Well, I like the way they handled themselves on the road for the first time. We took 80 players on the road, and a lot of them were first-time guys that have traveled. And we stayed at a hotel that had very little facility for us to do our normal routines. We were in tents in a parking lot. It was, I think from our standpoint, a difficult road trip, right? And our kids handled it very well. We're still dealing with some COVID procedures where, you're wearing masks on the plane, and then to go into a very difficult environment against a really talented team that had 16 transfers. You didn't know the quarterback situation. You lose an 18-point lead in the fourth quarter. And with all that, you have the grit and the determination to win an overtime game for the first time on the road since they started playing overtime. So all in all, pretty good day.
You're listening to The Brian Kelly Show, presented by the experts at TireRack.com. Welcome back to The Brian Kelly Show. It's time for this week's installment of Irish Intel, presented by TireRack.com. Let's start here on the opening drive. 4th and 1 for your offense. This is a big play to Michael Mayer. 41-yard touchdown on the opening drive to really set the tone for you guys. Yeah,
so we run one of our favorite plays, and we're trying to isolate the backside here with Mike Mayer. To do so, we've got to occupy the low player. You can see the corner that is down by Mike Mayer. We're going to occupy him with Kyron, and then we're going to take our next best player here in terms of the picture, and that's Kevin Austin. We're going to drive him to the backside safety, which now puts 2 players occupying the 2 that are on that side of the field, and it opens up Mike Mayer for the touchdown. So we're flooding the backside here, which now puts you in a position where number 5 is going to be taken care of, and the backside corner is going to be covered because 23 is coming out, and you can see now you've got a wide open Mike Mayer.
And so for the quarterback, Jack Cohn, where are his eyes going? What does he have to diagnose first?
Backside safety. He's looking at that backside safety. So if that backside safety, is over the top of Mike Mayer, he's throwing it to Kevin Austin. If he stays, and you can see right here, he's tracking him, and it opens up. He probably could have thrown it to either one of them. And again, we got them in tempo here. This was a 4th down call. We went fast. And quite frankly, they probably needed to have another guy over there. They just couldn't get lined up in time.
Okay, Coach, so Kyle Hamilton, 2 interceptions in this game. The second one is something that I think really speaks to how special of a player he is. 2nd and 8, just tell me how unique of a play this is for a safety to come over and make this play.
Well, he's in a deep third zone. The corner down to the bottom of the screen is in a deep third, but as we know, the quarterback is elusive, and he gets outside the pocket, and our corner really comes out of coverage when he shouldn't here. As you can see, he scrambles, our corner comes up, and he covers him up by coming all the way from the middle of the field. So if you look at the bottom of the screen, on the numbers, our corner, he's got deep third. You can see now the safety comes down. Hamilton is moving to the middle. He comes all the way from the backside to make this play. This is an extraordinary play. Quarterback would have never seen him, nor would he be in his read. So when you have a guy of this talent, that's the kind of play you get.
Welcome back to the Brian Kelly Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's Look Ahead, where we highlight Notre Dame's upcoming opponent. All right, we're joined now by Bill Reese, Director of Scouting for Notre Dame Football. And Bill, appreciate you taking some time again for us this year. We're going to get a chance to preview Toledo, obviously, next week, but I think we have to first hit on the game in the opener against Florida State. So exciting. Everybody was, of course, glued to their TV or their radio, taking that one in. Let's start with the offense. And I think everyone was really excited to see what the offense would look like this year. New quarterback, Jack Cohn. What stood out to you when you saw that game and you watched the film back?
Well, it's really good to start the season 1-0. And when you have to go on the road in a hostile environment and you come away with the W, that's the most important thing. There were a lot of new faces that were out there last night. A lot of guys that were called upon to come in off the bench when other guys went down. And it was really a very, very good team victory. And we were very well prepared for it. Even in advance, that war chant was played on the practice field and in the auditorium. So we knew what to expect. And it was a great victory, and openers are always pretty difficult because a team literally has 9 months to prepare. They are holding some things back. They trying different things out. There was a little bit of an element of surprise on both sides of the ball that Florida State implemented, but it was good. It just in terms of our guys played 70, 80 plays and are going to be better for it. And you make a big jump between week 1 and week 2 historically as the season progresses.
I think something that encouraged a lot of Notre Dame fans was how the ball was pushed down the field a little bit. Jack Cohn was not scared to throw it deep. You saw the big catch to Joe Wilkins in the end zone, the 37-yarder to Kevin Austin. It seems like that was a real emphasis in the first game. Is that something you saw when you watched this game back? And do you think that can be an option for this offense going forward?
Well, I think in evaluating Jack, the coaches really wanted to see what his strengths were going to be. One thing is he has very good pocket presence. He has good stature within the pocket. He'll hold the ball to the last possible second to let guys get open, and then he delivers the ball quickly. He's got very good accuracy. So we do have some weapons of guys that can get down the field vertically. And, Kevin Austin and Joe Wilkins, Braden Lenzy, he didn't have quite as big a night maybe as he's going to have in future weeks because he's coming back off an injury. So Avery Davis is also an extremely important cog in this passing attack. So there are a lot of weapons. And I think there was an emphasis because we want to do what Jack does well. And one thing he does very well is throw the ball vertically.
When you look at the defense, 38 points, I think originally people might come out and say, hey, that's a few too many for our liking. But the first couple drives were really great series for the defense. They looked really good. And there was that sequence in the third quarter where they took the ball away on 3 straight series. So they flashed in a way last night that I think is really encouraging. As you've gotten a chance to digest it, what stood out to you specifically as how that defense was able to take the ball away a few times in the second half?
Well, to begin with, the defense really came out, set the tone, and really set the offense up early with some really good opportunities that unfortunately the offense wasn't able to capitalize on. And if we had, it would have been a pretty one-sided game early. But again, it's an opener. And, the offense, again, still kind of feeling its way, but it was really set up very well by the defense early. And, as the game progressed and it went on, the big plays were apparent. The 3 takeaways were huge. It was just great plays and concentration by the DBs. Getting an interception on a deflection, and of course, Hamilton comes from about Miami Beach to get the 1 interception. The range was incredible. So all in all, there were a lot of positives to take away from it, and give Florida State credit. They mixed in some things that were different and put some pressure on the defense, but at the same time, we responded when we needed to, and like I said, getting the W was the most important thing.
Before we move on, I do want to ask you about that Hamilton interception you referred to. Have you ever seen a safety cover that much ground in that short of a time period to make an interception on the opposite half of the field when he started on the far hash?
That's very rare. And, it's a combination of, number one, instinct. He got a great jump on the ball. He's extremely athletic, very long, so he can cover ground much faster than your just normal safety. And he's a rare talent, and we're glad he's on our team.
All right, let's start looking ahead towards next week to Toledo. The first thing I want to touch on before we get into the specifics of them is just the unique turnaround, right? Sunday night game, so one less day to prepare, also a night game, so that even takes a few more hours away from you. You're obviously always looking ahead, but what challenges does that prevent for a staff when you can't have that full Sunday, and really it takes up a little bit of your early Monday when you guys get back so late? How does that affect your preparation going into this next week's game against Toledo?
Well, probably for everybody, it's sleep, and you're going to be deprived of sleep. But we got back very early in the morning, and guys got a little bit of sleep, got into the office. There's been a lot of preparation and work done previously. We did have the film Sunday in Tallahassee, so everyone was able to update the data, get all the information into the computers and into our system. The breakdowns were all set to go. The staff met both offensively and defensively, Coach Kelly, to go through the personnel today. So you're going to catch up, and it's just going to take a little while. But there's been a little bit of groundwork prior to coming in today, but we're squeezing a little bit more in today than a normal week, obviously.
For a lot of fans that might look at the schedule and think Toledo, that's going to be an easy game for Notre Dame in week 2. They're still one of the most consistent teams in the MAC year in and year out. I know last year's a tricky year because they only played 6 games, went 4-2. Just what potential issues can they cause you guys? What kind of threats do they pose as an opponent going into week 2?
Well, you're right. Toledo year in and year out has one of the finest programs, or a championship caliber program. They get good players. They have a number of players playing in the NFL. They play with an edge. They're a tough, competitive group. They have very good skill. They've gone toe to toe with good BCS teams every year. They've beaten BYU. They've gone toe to toe with Big Ten teams, and they're a hard team to prepare for, because they do things at such a high level. They're very well coached. They have 21 starters returning this year. They have a huge number of super seniors that will add to the depth, and that's one of the things that a school like Toledo faces every year, are depth issues. Well, this year there isn't going to be one. So they're in good position. They've settled on a quarterback. They've got another one that they're implementing as well. So they're going to present a number of problems for us, both offensively and defensively.
They won their opener against Norfolk State, a big win, 49-10. So it's hard to take a lot away from that as they prepare, obviously, to play Notre Dame this upcoming weekend. You mentioned the quarterback, Carter Bradley, who's listed as a sophomore, but he's a great example of benefiting from that unique redshirt rule they changed a few years back in 2018, and then he gets the COVID year. So he's listed as a sophomore. All that consistency you mentioned gives them a real edge. When you've gotten a chance to look at their quarterback, Bradley, what sticks out from him, and how will Notre Dame have to try to counter him in week 2?
Well, he's, a little bit of a unique story. His dad is Gus Bradley, who's been a longtime NFL head coach, was an NFL head coach. He's been a longtime NFL assistant as a defensive coordinator. So he's a coach's son. He certainly understands the game. He's very athletic. There's a story, I'm not sure about all the details, but he was supposed to go somewhere else, maybe I think a Southeast Conference school, and something happened at the end and he ended up at Toledo. So he's very talented, and you can see it on film. He's a high percentage passer. He moves well. He can run around. He's got a lot of confidence in his abilities to throw the football. He's not scared. He tucks the ball and goes. And he's been impressive watching last year's film and then watching him against Norfolk. They're also, I believe, going to use or have to their disposal is a guy by the name of Dequan Finn. And he is more of the dual threat, kind of the guy that we saw last night at Florida State. He can really run. He's a young player that they're just trying to get more and more reps for. And he's dangerous with the ball in his hands. So they have more of a traditional quarterback in Bradley, and then they've got a dual threat prospect that can come off and play in Finn. And, I think they're going to be, they're going to utilize their assets there.
As far as skill players on the offense, I know Bryant Kovacs, the talented running back that'll probably see most of the carries, and then their best wide receivers, likely Isaiah Winstead, preseason All-MAC. As you've looked at their skill players, what's going to be the key to slowing them down in week 2?
Well, Kovac's a transfer from Kentucky. So he was highly recruited out of high school and landed at an SEC school. And his skills are evident on film. He's a good runner. He can run inside, outside. He catches the ball well. He's got good size. He's a very productive player, and he'll be one of the better backs that we see. I know some of the NFL people are very high on his prospects, and the receiving core there has always been good. They really have 5 guys that they have distributed the ball to that have done, really good things in terms of route running, being able to find openings in zones, some deep threats. They've been really, really good in historically at wide receiver. They've got a nice blend there of size. They've got a couple really quick slot receivers. They've got a good tight end, big guy that can run and catch. So they're skilled guys. Like I said, they don't take a back seat to many people.
Defensive side of the ball, secondary has a few all-conference guys from a year ago. Samuel Womack. You got Tyson Anderson at safety, also Jamal Hines, a good outside linebacker. Watching the defense on film, what sticks out from those guys, and what will you have to be aware of?
Well, their front has really, I think, benefited from this added redshirt rule. They're very deep up front. They have 5 defensive tackles that they can rotate in and out. One of them is a transfer from Penn State, Culpepper, who has great size. He's about 6'3", 295. Dad played a long time in the NFL, and he stood out against Norfolk State. He did a really nice job. Like I said, he's a bigger, stronger guy, uses his hands real well. And then on the outside, Terrence Taylor and Hines really bring very good pressure off the edge. They're both speed guys. They both play with tenacity. Again, there are good players behind them, so they can rest them a little bit. So this team has really positioned itself well to have a great year.
There are 3 phases, and special teams scored 2 touchdowns last week against Norfolk State. Again, I know different opponent, of course, and maybe there's not too much stock to put into that, but anytime a team scores 2 special teams touchdowns in the opener, probably something you have to be aware of. Did anything stick out on that end?
Well, I'm sure Brian Polian has gone through it with a fine-tooth comb. What that tells you is that their players are engaged, that you're playing really hard in all phases. And something like that, they probably didn't have any film on Norfolk in terms of what they had been doing, or, they could change it up in terms of special teams, which a lot of people do. And so it could have been one of those things where they made adjustments in game to get those punts blocked after seeing their formations and their protections. So, they're, like I said, this is a complete team. Jason Candle's a very good coach, and he's got a really good staff.
Well, Bill, we appreciate you taking some time during the short week. We'll let you get back to preparations, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Enjoyed it. We'll see you next week.
Welcome back to the Brian Kelly Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's edition of Irishography. I first just want to ask you, last season was so unique. You guys finally got to go back into a packed house down there in Tallahassee. What was it like to be back in that environment?
It was awesome. You come to Notre Dame to play in places like that, to play in games like that. Obviously, the crowd had a big impact in the game, but it did for us too. That added adrenaline helps everybody. It's what it's all about. So I think I welcomed it. I think the team welcomed it. It was a great atmosphere for us.
Everyone's going to talk about the game winner. We'll talk about it in a second. But I do think your first kick, 48-yarder, at the time it was 14-7, Florida State was leading. That seemed like a kick that really gave you guys some momentum and stopped some of that Florida State momentum, maybe quieted the crowd a little bit. What was going through your mind as you stepped up for that kick?
Yeah, we started strong with the touchdown, and it was good for us to get back in field goal range to get some more points on the board to kind of, stem the tide a little bit. And getting points obviously is good for the offense. I think we scored 3 touchdowns in a row after that. So that was great to see. And it was ironic because that was my first field goal last year. It was a 48-yarder from the right hash. It was the exact same kick I think I had against Duke last year. So the same kick to start the season 2 years in a row. Felt pretty comfortable. Felt pretty good about it.
You kickers have photographic memories, I know. Remember all the kicks. So let's talk game winner now. 41 yards. You just saw your kicking counterpart for Florida State miss his kick. So at that point, it's likely going to come down to your foot. And when you saw the offense, they were not getting too creative on offense. They were really going to put the game on your foot. That shows a lot of confidence in you from the coaching staff. So what goes through your mind when you see that and in this packed house, it's going to come down to me?
It's comforting knowing that the coaching staff has that type of confidence in you late in the game. That's why I'm here. That's what we do. That's what we do all those 2-minute drills for during camp and in the summer and in the spring. So they've seen me in that situation before. I was looking forward to it. I was excited to have that opportunity. I haven't gotten that opportunity here. And obviously, it went my way. It felt pretty good.
The last time we talked was back in 2019 against USC when you got your first game ball. Now you got your second game ball. What does it feel like to get the game ball after a game?
It feels pretty great to get up there and sing the fight song in front of your teammates. It's a great feeling. It's always a special moment. When you win a game, it means a lot. To be the person up there singing and clapping and leading the song is something that I've gotten to experience twice, and something that's meant a lot to me both times.
You've really developed and I think evolved throughout your career here. Just tell me, what has been the emphasis for you? How have you tried to get better each year? And maybe what are you most proud of as you've developed each and every year on campus at Notre Dame?
Well, I feel like Notre Dame has developed me as a whole person, not just as a football player, and I think that has helped me develop more as a football player, quite honestly. I feel like, I've matured each and every year. I've gotten better, with off-the-field stuff and on-the-field stuff each and every year. So, when those moments happen, I feel pretty comfortable with who I am. And that kind of rises, that kind of goes above everything you are as a player in those moments. So I think just my total development here at Notre Dame has really helped aid my kicking development, and more specifically football-wise, it's just, just trying to get more consistent year in and year out. That's the name of the game with, with everything, but kicking especially, that's what you want. And even though sometimes the results haven't shown that for me, I've always felt that I've improved from year to year. And so, it's good when for nights like that to occur, when you can kind of see your work come to fruition.
Last question I have for you is, of course, you went into a great environment in Tallahassee this past weekend, but now you guys get to come back home, play in front of a full crowd, have everyone back after the unique year we had last season. What are you most looking forward to for a full Notre Dame stadium this upcoming weekend?
I'm looking forward to do the walk again. I've always loved the walk. It's one of my favorite parts of game day here. I have a lot of my friends who are traveling back to see this game. It was tough, obviously, not having the fans last year, but I think it'll be a great atmosphere for us. It'll be great for some of the young guys to see what a true Notre Dame home game is like, and all the pageantry and all the tradition involved with that, and just get back here on a sunny afternoon in front of our fans.
Jonathan, thanks for the time and congrats on the game ball.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it.
Welcome back to the Brian Kelly Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's final check-in.
Morning, Brian. Just a serious thing. I'll say them real quick. The general health of your team coming into this week, and how it responded to the short week, and what concerns that do you have about this Toledo team that's coming in? Thanks.
Yeah. Well, anytime you lose guys this early in the season, it's a concern. I mean, we have more surgeries, in the first week than you would want to have. So, that's a concern. We cannot continue on this trend of having guys out for the entire season because of year-ending surgery. So we hope that we've gone through that, and we're going to trend on the right end of injuries. I think the health of our team relative to the bounce back from getting in at 4:30 in the morning on Monday, our guys have done a great job. They got the rest necessary. Their mindset was great, that they needed to take care of themselves. This was about really rest and nutrition. And I thought they did a great job. We're in a really good place going into Thursday relative to their recovery. And we were, quite frankly, we had to be smart with the way we practiced this week. But, we've prepared them for a really good Toledo team. I think what concerns me the most is, the two quarterback situation again. I think that they are very difficult. They've got a very good scheme that, puts each of those two quarterbacks in a position where they can make plays. They've got receivers that are skilled, run very good routes, but I think their offense is set up with their offensive line. The center, the left guard, the left tackle is their power five offensive linemen. So when you have a really good offensive line, really good scheme offensively, two really good quarterbacks, veteran defensive players that returned from last year. Like I said, this is a very mature football team. 2019, they beat BYU, who we know had some very talented players on. They get your attention. So that's kind of where we're at.
Eric Hansen, you're up next.
Hey, Brian. Sorry to throw a bunch of names at you, but I'm going to follow up on John's question. 6 names. Shane Simon and Fisher, how those MRIs came out. The 3 kids that were unavailable last week, so that would be Diggs, Sibo, and Botello, what their status is for this week. And finally, there were reports that Lawrence Keys was leaving the roster. And I wondered if you could confirm or expand on what's going on with Lawrence.
Yeah. So I might as well just give you the update that I have as of today relative to, we'll start with the injuries. Blake Fisher is just getting out of surgery. He had a meniscus, which is being repaired. So Dr. Radigan is doing that meniscus procedure as we speak. And you know how that runs. A meniscus is probably 8 weeks for him. So we're hopeful that we'll have him back this year. Kevin Bauman had the fibula fracture. He had that surgery yesterday. That was clean. We're hopeful in 6 weeks to have him back. Shane Simon should be coming out of surgery here pretty soon. He had a pretty good labrum tear. We'll lose him for the year. As you know, that's probably a 6 months procedure. Paul Mawala yesterday had the Achilles tendon repair surgery. You know how we feel about that, and our doctors have never seen it in their career somebody tear both Achilles tendons. So not only is it gut-wrenching and disappointing, but something that they've never seen medically as well. The unavailable players, we have Logan Diggs is back, and he is available to us this week. The two unavailable players this week will be Jordan Botello and Sibo. Those two will be unavailable this week. And of course, Marist, had his surgery. Lawrence Keys is no longer on our roster. Lawrence has chosen to pursue finishing up his degree. I think Lawrence is, I think he's one semester in my conversation with our academic coordinator who handles those matters. I think he's taking 18 hours this semester, which would allow him to get his degree this semester. And then he's going to evaluate what he wants to do after that, whether football's in the cards for him or not. So other than that, that's where we are with injuries, unavailable, and Lawrence Keys.
Tim O'Malley, you're up next.
Coach, in light of all the linebacker injuries, it seems like you have a 2x2 now across the board of scholarship players. Is there anyone that has to move, or do you have faith in walk-ons to get you through in practice, barring no more injuries?
Yeah, we moved Xavier Watt. Xavier is playing the rover position now. We wanted to strengthen that position. So we feel like with him there, it gives us the ability to cross-train Jack Kaiser at the inside linebacker position in case there is a need there. Prince Colley is moved to the inside linebacker position as well, as you know. And so we think that strengthens us for the long haul, for the season, in case we do sustain any further injuries down the road. Hopefully, as I said, the injury train kind of comes to a halt. But we felt like that was in our best interests relative to where we are. We feel really good about where we are at the wide receiver position. So we could afford to move a really good player like Xavier, who we felt, had the skills that he could make that jump to defense and contribute this weekend at the rover position.
Chuck Freeby, you're up next.
Brian, can you address the significance of playing on the 20th anniversary of 9/11? And is that something you've discussed with your players, many of whom weren't even born then?
Yeah, I mean, I think playing or not playing, there's incredible significance of 20 years post 9/11. I think it's etched in everybody's mind that saw it on that day. And if you didn't, our guys, it's not ancient history to them, even if they weren't born. They have a family member or somebody that they knew was part of it. And so, it hits close to home to so many people, and Notre Dame in particular will have a celebration, but for a large part, we'll be in the locker room. So we're going to do something on social media that we'll get out here in the next 24 hours that lets everybody know how important it is to us as players, as coaches, as a football program, because sometimes it's like, well, what does it mean to Notre Dame and Notre Dame football? It means a lot. It's an important date, and one that we carry with us every single day and remember it. And it'll always be with us. So we thought it was important that we did something to show, the importance of that 20-year remembrance.
Patrick Engel, you're up next.
Brian, I know the Keys departure and Watts moving brings you down to, I think it's 7 scholarship receivers, but like you said, it sounds like you feel pretty good about that. What have you seen from some of those other guys like a Colsey or a Jaden Thomas or Styles that might now make them have to be involved a little bit more?
Well, we have great confidence in them. Lorenzo will play out at the X with Braden. Joe Wilkins will play in at the slot receiver with Avery. Deion Colsey will now play at the W. With Kevin, Jane Thomas will be a swing guy. So, we feel really good. Salerno's in there as well. So we feel really good. I mean, I'm excited about, getting a chance to see, those guys, but also, some of the young guys is they get this opportunity to play a little bit more. I think Joe is well suited at the position that he's going to play. More Z, more X, getting Lorenzo on the field, getting Dion on the field. They're ready to play. So let's get them going. As I told Tommy and Dell, it's their time. With the veterans that we have, it's going to be a nice mix and an exciting mix.
Pete Sampson, you're up next. Pete, I think you're unmuted, but we're not hearing you.
No, I'm good there. I had a question about Isaiah Foskey and sort of his positioning within the defense. And sort of your reaction when Marcus said, like, hey, we'd like to move him almost to like a middle linebacker spot or an outside linebacker spot. I'm just interested how you reacted to that, because you think of these defensive ends, you're thinking of like, could he be the next Romeo Okwara? Could he be the next Julian Okwara? And then, the role is completely different.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it. I think that, Isaiah Foskey is going to help us, his position will kind of settle itself where, he's going to play off the edge of our defense. Will he play a little bit somewhere else? Certainly. I think there'll be some uncertainty, Pete, in terms of where he lines up. But at the end of the day, he's going to be on the edge of our defense.
Tyler Horka, you're up next.
Hey, Brian, you mentioned Xavier Watts playing Rover. I'm just curious if that decision came about after Paul's injury, or if that was something that was in the cards prior to that, and how he's looked since he's kind of made that transition, and what you think he can provide for you guys there in practices and maybe even beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. One of my jobs is to get really good players on the field, and we had a little bit of a log jam at the wide receiver position, and Xavier is a really good football player, and we need to get good players on the field. And so, finding ways to get him on the field, and then by happenstance, we get banged up at the Rover position, and then, Jack gives us some flexibility at Rover and inside backer. So it just strengthened our hand, the injuries, and then, we had been having conversations about finding a role for X because he's such a fine player and a fine athlete. And so I guess it's a little bit of both, happening at the same time. How did he look? He certainly looks the part. It's going to be early. We're going to play him Saturday. He's going to play Rover. When we get into the right situation, look, he doesn't have all the knowledge of the position. We're going to pick our spots. You're not going to see him line up there in the first play or the first series, but we're going to pick our spots and get him involved. He's involved in more special teams right away now. But we like him. We wouldn't trade him. Let's put it that way. He's a guy that we want on the field. We value him a lot, and this is a way to get him going.
Coach, looking ahead towards next week, a short week this week. You guys got back really late Sunday night, really technically Monday morning as you get ready. What's the biggest challenge that presents for you and your team as you get ready for Toledo?
Yeah, preparation, right? The mental and the physical. But that, as I mentioned, that was a physical football team. And we got guys banged up. We lost some guys, so we've got to make some changes relative to the depth in certain areas and get these guys physically in a good place so we can prepare them for a really good Toledo football team. So, looking at the schedule, being smart, making sure that our guys are in the training room, getting the proper rest, nutrition, mature football teams understand how important that is, and they're going to have to be really on it this week in their preparation.
You mentioned Toledo, a really consistent program out of the MAC. I know it's early in the week for you guys, but what challenges will they present? What will you have to be on top of as you prepare for them?
They're going to play fast. They're going to play free. They're going to play physical. We're just coming off a physical game. We gotta put that behind us, and we got to move to it quickly. And they're well coached, and it's a mature team, a team that returns virtually all their starters on offense and defense, and a winning program. You know, Jason has done a great job of bringing this team into these kinds of environments and playing really well. So he's got a history of doing that. So we expect a really, really good challenge from this football team.
You got a chance for your team to see a great environment on the road in Tallahassee. Finally, you come back home. I think everybody's excited to see Notre Dame Stadium full. What's maybe the one thing you're looking forward to most as you guys get to go back into that full stadium?
Oh, the running out of the tunnel. Come on, that never gets old, and just having the capacity crowd, the tailgating, the pep rallies, and all that goes along with the great traditions of Notre Dame, and then the fans being in that stadium is what it's all about. It's part of the Notre Dame mystique, but it's also real, and so it's going to be fun to get our players back into the stadium and work on getting another win at home.
Coach, thanks for the time. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.
You have been listening to The Brian Kelly Show, presented by the experts at TireRack.com.